This morning, police are investigating the murder of veteran character actor James Handy.
Hey, Mav.
The 81-year-old last appeared in Top Gun Maverick alongside Tom Cruise
at 9:30 a.m. on June 3rd, 2026.
On the morning of June 3rd, 2026, a quiet street in the Tarzana neighborhood of Los Angeles became the center of a story that would ripple through Hollywood for weeks. At approximately 9:30 in the morning, a 911 call came through to the Los Angeles Police Department from a residential address on Irwin Street. The caller's words, as reported by the LAPD and confirmed by CBS Los Angeles, ABC7, and NBC Los Angeles, were not confused or rambling. They were precise and deeply unsettling. "I am the Son of Man. I just killed the man of sin." When officers arrived minutes later at the property, they found 81-year-old actor James Handy lying in the front yard, unconscious, suffering from a stab wound to his chest. Emergency responders began life-saving efforts immediately and transported him to a nearby hospital, but despite those efforts, Handy was later pronounced dead. A man with more than 100 film and television credits, a Vietnam War veteran, and a career spanning nearly 5 decades was gone. And the circumstances surrounding his death would force a difficult conversation about mental illness, household risk, how Hollywood values the people who build its films from the inside, and what it really means when a working actor's life ends in silence. The suspect was identified quickly. According to the Los Angeles Police Department, as reported across ABC7, NBC Los Angeles, and CBS Los Angeles, 44-year-old Michael Gledhill did not attempt to flee after the stabbing. Ring camera footage obtained by TMZ showed him walking calmly along the sidewalk in front of neighboring homes in the immediate aftermath, with police helicopters circling overhead. When LAPD officers arrived on Irwin Street, Gledhill flagged them down himself and told them directly that he was the person they were looking for. He was arrested on suspicion of murder and transported to Van Nuys Jail, with bail set at $2 million. By Friday of the same week, the Los Angeles County District Attorney's Office had formally charged him with 1 count of murder and a special allegation of personal use of a deadly weapon, identified as a knife, according to the DA's official press release. The case was assigned to Deputy District Attorney George Morris of the Family Violence Division and remained under investigation by the LAPD's Robbery Homicide Division. Gledhill was not a stranger to the home or to Handy. According to police accounts reported by NBC Los Angeles and CBS Los Angeles, he lived at the Tarzana residence with his mother, Wendy Gledhill, who had been in a romantic relationship with Handy. The household arrangement placed 3 adults under one roof, an 81-year-old actor in the later years of his life, his longtime partner, and her adult son. Wendy Gledhill later disclosed, according to reporting cited in the reference material, that her son had been diagnosed with schizophrenia and had discontinued his medication shortly before the incident. That detail became central to understanding not just the legal proceedings that followed, but the broader clinical and sociological context that researchers say surrounds domestic tragedies of this particular kind. Mental health professionals are careful and consistent in making a distinction that tends to get lost in media coverage of cases like this one. The National Institute of Mental Health and the MacArthur Violence Risk Assessment Study, both referenced in clinical literature, have shown through large-scale epidemiological research that schizophrenia itself does not predict violence. The overwhelming majority of people living with schizophrenia are not violent and are statistically more likely to be victims of violence than perpetrators. Where elevated risk does exist, researchers have identified a narrow cluster of contributing conditions: untreated psychosis, paranoid ideation, social isolation, perceived interpersonal threat, and the absence of consistent external support, particularly when these factors converge inside a shared living environment with limited outside intervention. The language Gledhill used during the 911 call, identifying himself as the Son of Man and Handy as the man of sin, drew on imagery from biblical texts, specifically language found in 2 Thessalonians and in broader Christian theological tradition. Forensic psychologists and law enforcement investigators do not interpret such language at face value. Clinical psychiatrist Dr. Ronald W. Pies has written that delusions are fixed false beliefs held with extraordinary conviction despite clear contradicting evidence, and that in acute psychotic episodes those beliefs can become tightly fused with perceived moral or cosmic narratives. Investigators use such statements as one piece of behavioral evidence among many, placed alongside physical evidence, relationship history, witness accounts, and documented mental health background. Gledhill did not appear at his initial arraignment in Los Angeles Superior Court, and no plea was entered. His attorney informed the court that jail authorities had not transported him to the proceedings. According to ABC7's reporting, Superior Court Judge John H. Reed responded by ordering that Gledhill be sent to mental health court and undergo psychological evaluation to determine his competency to stand trial. Mental health courts exist specifically to address cases where severe psychiatric illness may impair a defendant's ability to meaningfully participate in legal proceedings. Forensic evaluators in these processes assess a defendant's understanding of the charges against them, their capacity to assist their own legal counsel, and the coherence of their reality testing. Legal scholar Christopher Slobodan has noted that competency standards are not about guilt or innocence, but about ensuring the fairness of the adversarial legal process when mental illness is present. If Gledhill is found incompetent to stand trial, he would be referred for treatment aimed at restoring competency before any trial could proceed. If convicted as charged, he faces a sentence of 26 years to life in state prison, according to NBC Los Angeles. The LA County District Attorney Nathan Hochman addressed Handy's death directly in a public statement quoted by ABC7 and CBS Los Angeles. "This is not how anyone's life should end, stabbed in the chest and left dying in the front yard of a home. The victim, James Handy, deserved to live out his later years enjoying what he had worked so hard for and enjoying it with those he loved and cared about." That statement from the district attorney raised a question that the broader entertainment industry largely left unanswered. Who was James Handy, and what had he spent those decades working so hard for? The answer is a portrait of a career that Hollywood benefits from constantly but rarely stops to properly acknowledge. Born in New York City, Handy began his screen career in 1977, according to his Wikipedia biography, entering the industry during the era of network soap operas and early television drama. His first significant work came through Ryan's Hope, the ABC daytime drama that served as a training ground for character actors entering Hollywood's wider ecosystem. He was not a breakout star, and he was never meant to be. What he became instead was something arguably more valuable to the industry in practical terms: a permanent, reliable, highly adaptable presence that could be deployed across genres, decades, and production scales without disrupting the world of any story he entered. According to his IMDb page, cited by ABC7 and multiple news outlets covering his death, Handy accumulated more than 100 acting credits across a career that spanned nearly 5 decades. That number, while it does not appear on marquees, reflects a level of sustained professional longevity that is statistically far rarer than stardom itself. His film work threaded through productions that became genuinely significant pieces of American popular culture. In 1990, he appeared in Arachnophobia, directed by Frank Marshall, playing a resident of the small California town at the center of the film's spider infestation narrative. The film starred Jeff Daniels and has become a cult favorite repeatedly revisited by horror and comedy audiences. A year later, he appeared in The Rocketeer, Disney's adaptation of Dave Stevens' comic book, set in 1938 Los Angeles and following a stunt pilot who discovers a stolen rocket pack while battling gangsters and Nazi operatives. The film has since earned a devoted following as a piece of beloved superhero history. By 1995, Handy found himself in one of the decade's defining family blockbusters when he appeared in Jumanji alongside Robin Williams, Bonnie Hunt, Kirsten Dunst, and Bradley Pierce, playing a police officer drawn into the chaos unleashed by the supernatural board game at the center of the story. Jumanji did not simply come and go as a successful film. It became the foundation of a multi-generational franchise that continued producing sequels and generating new audiences decades after the original's release. In 2017, he appeared in Logan, directed by James Mangold and starring Hugh Jackman in his final performance as Wolverine. Set in a bleak near-future America, the film followed an aging and deteriorating Wolverine attempting to protect a young mutant while confronting his own mortality and the collapse of everything he had once stood for. Handy played a doctor, a small but tonally appropriate role within a story preoccupied with age, physical decline, and the costs of a life lived in violence. His most recent major film credit was Top Gun: Maverick, where he played a bartender named Jimmy. The film, produced by and starring Tom Cruise, was released after multiple pandemic-related delays and went on to earn over $1.4 billion worldwide, as reported widely across entertainment media, making it one of the highest-grossing films of 2022 and a landmark achievement in legacy sequel filmmaking. Handy's role was brief and functionally atmospheric, the kind of casting that stabilizes the world of a film rather than drives its narrative. But Top Gun: Maverick did not fade quickly from cultural memory. Its extended life cycle through streaming, award season recognition, and ongoing franchise discussions kept its cast list in circulation far longer than most blockbuster films manage. When news of Handy's death broke in June 2026, that credit became one of the most widely cited touchpoints in global reporting about him, according to coverage from ABC7, NBC Los Angeles, and CBS Los Angeles. It was not because the role defined his career. It was because the film it attached him to was still actively present in the cultural conversation. Before any of his screen credits existed, James Handy had lived through something that shaped everything that followed. According to his reference biography, he served in the United States Army during the Vietnam War era, deployed with the 196th Light Infantry Brigade to Tay Ninh Province between August 1966 and July 1967, a period of intense ground operations during the broader escalation of American involvement in the war. In later interviews, he described sustained combat conditions that stretched across weeks in the field, sensory disorientation from dense jungle terrain, near total darkness, and the constant uncertainty of proximity to enemy positions. He described witnessing fellow soldiers killed or injured at close range. After returning home, that experience did not recede into background biography. It actively reshaped his worldview. He later identified as a pacifist, stating that his time in combat led him to believe the war had caused unnecessary suffering without meaningful justification. He expressed consistent discomfort throughout his career with stylized or simplified screen depictions of Vietnam-era combat, arguing that many popular films failed to honestly represent the psychological and moral complexity of what soldiers had actually experienced. That personal history gave his long run of authority figures, law enforcement characters, and institutional roles a foundation that most viewers never knew was there. Sheriffs, officers, government figures, men positioned inside systems of power, these were roles Handy inhabited across shows including NYPD Blue, ER, The West Wing, The X-Files, Criminal Minds, and Alias, where he played the recurring character Arthur Devlin. None of these roles made him famous in the traditional sense. All of them made those productions more real, more grounded, more credible. That is what a working actor of his category does. It is essential and almost entirely invisible. The institutional response to his death reflected exactly that invisibility. Hollywood's public reaction was, by most measures, quiet. There were no immediate high-profile tributes from major stars. There were no primetime memorial segments or industry-wide moments of silence. The Los Angeles County District Attorney issued a statement. LAPD's Robbery Homicide Division continued its investigation. Reporting from ABC7, NBC Los Angeles, CBS Los Angeles, and TMZ documented the facts of the case with professionalism and care. But the broader entertainment industry, the studios and streaming platforms and franchise machines that had used Handy's reliability across 5 decades, produced the kind of muted response that has become characteristic of how Hollywood treats working character actors when they are no longer available to be used. This is the structural reality that cases like James Handy's expose. The industry is built on the work of people like him. Films like Jumanji, Top Gun, Maverick, Logan, and Arachnophobia are not held together only by their leads. They are held together by the accumulated labor of hundreds of actors whose names do not appear in the opening credits but whose presence makes every scene believable. When those actors are alive and available, they are booked steadily and valued practically. When they are gone, the silence that follows reveals something uncomfortable about which lives the industry considers worth publicly mourning. James Handy spent nearly 50 years contributing to that machine. He brought to it the discipline of a man who had survived combat, the professionalism of someone who showed up prepared for every role regardless of its size, and the quiet integrity of a performer who never needed the spotlight to justify his presence in a room. He was 81 years old, living in Tarzana with the woman he cared about, when a domestic situation inside a household carrying enormous emotional and psychiatric weight reached a point of rupture that no one could walk back. The district attorney was right. That is not how anyone's life should end. And the least that can be done now, in the aftermath, is to say his name clearly, account for his life accurately, and refuse to let the silence that followed his death be the final word on who he was.